Welcome to the OUV podcast.
So, after a small hiatus where we were having fun with family and friends, we're now back with a new episode where we talk about the perceptions of Iraq, racial stereotypes, outrage, porn, or media, however you want to call it, history of the U.S. With media and violence, Martin Luther King, Kenyan post-election violence, Bastille Day, Haiti, monarchies, and their passports.
Thank you. That was very well done.
Thank you.
I usually make 5 or 6 takes.
If there's one thing I can do is talk.
Yeah. It's a gift.
Yes, a gift that hopefully I'll be able to use that also gets me paid. You know?
Yeah. Hello.
Hello?
How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm doing well as well. It's been a while.
No. I know, it has been a while. I was out in Paris. I promised somebody I would play Ultimate Frisbee. And I did, and that was a mistake because I sprinted as hard as everybody who's been doing that sport for many years, and I hadn't.
What's the difference between Ultimate Frisbee and Frisbee?
Okay, when you hear Frisbee, what do you think?
I think of the disc that people throw, but I've played it where people from different teams are just throwing the disc and trying to cross some boundary, basically scoring, but in a rudimentary fashion without any pitch markings. Yeah. And what's Frisbee?
Frisbee is actually a brand name, funny enough.
Oh.
Yeah, I think it was originally Ultimate Frisbee. That the company Frisbee said Frisbee is trademark, so they just renamed the sport Ultimate, which is ironic.
Trademarks ruin a lot of things.
Yes, and I understand why trademarks exist, but they ruin more things, I think.
Yeah. Speaking of which, it was Mickey Mouse's birthday recently.
It was?
Yeah, I don't know exactly when, but I didn't want to celebrate. I just heard it was Mickey Mouse's birthday, and I was like, I was gnashing my teeth and stuff, thinking of how hard Disney tried to protect the brand and basically, suing or threatening to sue anybody who even minorly infringe on a cartoon character, something that most people get to know as kids and grow up with, get to know when they're kids and grow up with. Though there was also some racist Mickey Mouse cartoons from the early, I want to say 40s, 50s.
Yeah.
Some banned Disney content, which I think they still show them. They still present it, but they give it with they place a disclaimer saying it belongs to its time, and some of these views are not accepted today. They're bad, but it's what it is.
Well, I'm happy that I don't have to care about Mickey Mouse anymore because I'm not a child. So, if you missed the live podcast, check out our YouTube as well. Okay, broadcast, check out our YouTube as well. Share now. So live, we're back from blah, 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 blah. Share now. Now Twitter, log out of Twitter. Could you retweet and share what I'm putting up now?
Just a moment. Yes, I believe I could do that. Sorry about the desk noise.
Yeah, no problem. Noises with my keyboard still. Oh my god!
What are you eating?
I'm just eating a regular chicken sandwich.
Oh.
But all homemade.
All on? Oh, 28. Retweeted. And I want to retweet it again.
My timeline.
I just retweeted it, and I'm gonna do it again from my.
Okay.
I think my first Twitter account, which I lost the login for 10 years.
Wow.
Then I just forgot the login completely and opened a new one about 10 years ago. It was 3 months after I opened the first one. So 10 years later, I'm like, let me just try again. Because I keep seeing this person with a profile that looks like they cloned my profile, but don't have any followers. Turns out it was me.
That's pretty good.
Turns out I cloned myself, then forgot about it.
You know, dangerous and hilarious plotline.
Just a moment.
Yeah.
Could you just repeat the last sentence?
I said it would be a great movie plot.
Yeah. I think it would remind me of Fight Club a bit,
Mm-hmm.
or
Yeah.
what's the other one? Shutter Island.
Yeah, exactly.
So Fight Club or Shutter Island?
All right,
Who was
we're good.
the main star in Fight Club? Brad Pitt.
Brad Pitt and Edward Norton.
And Shutter Island, Brad Pitt
I
and
don't
someone
remember.
else. Oh, Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, how did I confuse the two? Brad Pitt wasn't in the Titanic.
No. Okay. So now that we're back, Hi, what's up?
I'm good.
Mhm.
We're trying to get a new apartment, a bigger apartment.
Yeah.
Everything looks positive, but there's a few hiccups we need to iron out.
Like.
The main one being the guy who owns the house is actually moving out. So it's a 2-story house. So he was living in the ground floor or first floor, if I speak American. Then what happened? Oh, so he moves out, and the tenants from upstairs move downstairs. So the house above is empty. So we can move in. He's okay with us moving in, but he also put the house for sale.
Oh.
So
okay.
It depends on how soon a prospective buyer responds, and if they respond, what they want to do with their house.
So if, for example, they don't want tenants.
Yeah, it will be pretty annoying for us to move out, put everything in, then 1 or 2 months later, the owner is like, "Now I need my house."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But so far, for now, everything looks good. We get along with the tenants who already live there, because they had a bit of a say on who moves in.
Okay.
So we just went there, hung out with them. Then we know the immediate neighbors.
That's super nice.
Yeah, so it's a really nice place, and the kindergarten is not so far. It's about 2 houses away, and the school is right opposite. So it's, as far as raising a kid there goes, it's super convenient transport wise, proximity wise.
Now, let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Kindergarten actually means something in German.
Kindergarten with my.
Is it literally kids' garden?
I should ask Laura. Is kindergarten, does it translate to a kid's garden? Yeah, a lot of German words are like that.
Mm-hmm.
It translates to kids' garden. When I first moved here, I was starting to speak more German, and some of the words came off really weird, like vacuum cleaner. Because I was coming from a background where I speak English and things just have names, like not description. So a vacuum cleaner is something that cleans using a vacuum, but or a Hoover. But in German, it's a Staubsauger, a dust sucker. I found that really hilarious. Or gloves being hand shoes.
Yeah.
Or I went to the dentist. I was going to the dentist a lot, and gums are called tooth meat.
I do remember that. I don't know why I remember that specific thing. Out of all things I should remember.
And it comes off really weird. Yeah, it's descriptive and it makes sense, but it just sounded really weird at first. Now I'm used to it. Yeah, but toes are just toes. They're not called leg fingers.
Yeah,
but
I heard Laura.
Yeah, if you follow that trajectory, they would be called leg fingers.
It's true. Right, and right, fingers would just be fingers because you have to establish at least one normal body part.
Yeah,
right? They're not arm fingers because they are arm fingers. They're just fingers.
Yeah, and also fingers in German.
So let's see. Today, we could talk about many topics.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. I was absolutely thinking the same thing.
Let's work. How about let's just work out what we want to do here. Because we could just improvise. I mean, we haven't improvised in forever.
Yeah,
we're good at that.
Well, are you itching to talk about something?
Well,
anything, a hobby, a sport you have been playing, the board games.
Always. So in my mind, I could always talk about the committee, the World Heritage Committee, because there was tons of stuff that happened there, even stuff that I didn't necessarily pay attention to. we could definitely talk about that. There's tons of topics.
Speaking of which, we have to talk about Babylon.
About what? Babylon?
Babylon, yeah, and Babylon, the site from Iraq that was nominated.
Okay. You
And
want to start there?
describe just a little bit about it. I felt happy for them that they got the inscription because when we were still living in Cottbus,
Mm-hmm.
I met. We were working at the printing press, and one of the guys who was working there is from Iraq,
Okay.
and we used to talk about where we come from, and there was always conversation, and he always used to get pissed because whenever he told mostly Germans about his home or him going to visit, they always had to include a camel. Like the idea of Iraq is just people riding camels, and I think camel jockey is actually a racial slur for Arabs.
I wasn't aware of that. But,
So at some point in my life, I was going through a whole encyclopedia of racial slurs.
mhm.
Not very proud of that, but camel jockey was
Was one of these. Mhm.
yeah, not Arabs, but mostly people from the Middle East
Yeah.
are sometimes a derogatory term that some people use, unsavory individuals use against them.
Yeah.
Okay,
Of
so
course.
whenever I told people about him going home, they always like, so when you got off the plane, did you get on a camel? He's like, no. Okay, I use a taxi. Okay, so when did the taxi reach a place and drop you off to a place where everybody boards a camel? No.
Still no.
Still
There's
no.
no change in my life.
So you're saying it really pisses him off that most people, I presume he meant most people outside of Iraq and very far from Iraq, think of it as this extremely backward place that's either stuck in time or people fighting. But for him, he was like, some of the world's oldest civilizations were located around here.
No, straight up.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Most of my archaeology and history studies, pretty much every single starting point that they always start with, and it's mostly because of the historical record they have proof of.
Yeah.
They start with the Fertile Crescent. You're familiar with that?
Mesopotamia, where agriculture started.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Right. So that is, and Iraq it's straight. It's there.
Yeah.
Right. So of course I would be frustrated if somebody did that to me, considering that the earliest recorded, not earliest recorded, but the earliest sites that we can really talk about in terms of big civilization come from the Fertile Crescent, right? Mesopotamia, those civilizations.
Absolutely. And so for that reason, I was really excited. I'm yet to go into detail on what exactly in Babylon was nominated, but I was really excited about it.
Yeah.
I was like, take that world.
Yeah, well, here, let me. I have the nomination in front of me.
Uh-huh.
I don't remember. So obviously, it was. So first of all, it was apparently it was a nomination that was deferred or referred back to the previous session of the World Heritage League. First of all, and it was inscribed for, let's see, 2 criteria.
Uh-huh.
Criteria 3, where it essentially states that Babylon dates back to the 3rd millennium BCE and was the seat of successive powerful empires under such famous rulers as Hammurabi and Nebuchadnezzar, as the capital of the Neo-Babylonian Empire. Give a few dates. Its most exceptional testimony of its culture at the height and represent the expression of the civilization's creativity during this highly productive phase in architectural and urban creation. And then criteria 4, Babylon functioned as a model, parable, and symbol of ancient power over 2,000 years and inspired artistic, popular, and religious culture on a global scale. So these 2 pieces were the main reason why it was inscribed. Of course, there's all sorts of integrity and authenticity, which verifies exactly how it's authentic and why it's as important as it is. But it was also recommended for inscription on the list of World Heritage in Danger. because it needs a few additional things before it actually gets. Oh. Sorry, apologies.
Yeah, it's okay.
But yeah, it needs a few things before it's nice and properly protected. But yeah, no,
It's a start.
It's a great. I think it's a good step forward.
Okay.
For the region.
So let me just give you a snapshot of how I think most people view Iraq, or the kind of news that people consume about Iraq. When I just do a simple Google search of Iraq, the top stories that come are news stories that come from the national interest. The story is War Talk. Turkey has fired ballistic missiles into Iraq. Another one from Al Jazeera. Iraq atrocities are still over, but where are the missing Yazidis? And the third one is Green Beret who served in Iraq and Afghanistan dies in combat in Afghanistan. So that's just the gist of how Iraq is usually discussed. But if I Google Babylon Iraq UNESCO, just for example, the story is completely different and it's much more positive. Iraq celebrates Babylon UNESCO decision. That's from the Associated Press. UNESCO lists Iraq's Babylon as a World Heritage Site. The city of Babylon earns UNESCO recognition as a World Heritage Site. Yeah. So it's a bit more. It's more positive. Even the other snippets of information have a more positive. They have a more positive tone and not the usual. I tend to think that the news media has a template of how they discuss different parts of the world.
I would love to at some point talk to a journalist about that, like a global journalist, not just your next door neighbor who writes for the local paper, as knowledgeable as he may be. But I want into somebody who does international news. I would want to talk to them and see if that's actually the case, or who does their research for them, because of course some of them will do the research and be out in the field, but if all of them have a similar type of view, or they have a certain type of spin on it, I would be curious whether, exactly as you said, there's an actual formula which they use.
Okay, speaking of which, there's something else which I might have been itching to talk about. It ties in well with what we are currently discussing about how how journalists write about different parts of the world. Okay. There's about 2 months ago, a Kenyan activist and author passed away. He was called Bibinyanga Wainaina. And one of his most famous articles or series of essays was how to write about Africa.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I've shared it right now in our chat. And so it's really interesting how he puts it. It basically sums up how, if you watched any movie about Africa or most news that covers the continent, it follows this pattern. I've also read an article some time back about how to write about Somalia. I don't know if it was a homage to this article, but it follows the same pattern. It talks about how you should focus on the war and the skinny people on the streets and the violence and how some rebel is in love with his AK-47 and stuff like that. How is the connection on your side? I'm just looking at Discord right now and...
It dropped for a second.
Okay, so it's back to normal. Oh yeah, I just noticed it dropped and it was in the red. Yeah. Now it looks good.
No, it's better now.
Yeah. So...
tell me.
I tend to think they have a template, whether it's editorially enforced or not.
Yeah.
I believe they have a template. Which unfortunately places some nations or groups or ethnic groups of people or ethnic groups at a disadvantage, so to say.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's funny because I think we've talked about the fact that media nowadays has this tendency to go overboard in terms of the rage factor, so that people will click on the articles, therefore getting a click on the website, which means that they get more advertisement money, right?
Outrage porn.
Excuse me?
Outrage porn. Yeah, you heard me. You heard me correctly.
Please explain that better, because out of context, that sounds very bizarre.
Okay, I never thought about it out of context until right now. Have you watched Black Mirror?
I have. I haven't watched it frequently enough to say I've watched it. I've watched one or two episodes, basically.
Okay, I doubt one of those 2 episodes were about the guys whose clones power, not their clones, of these guys who are connected to computers, and you basically have to watch ads by force. And yeah,
I don't know. I didn't watch that.
okay, let me look for a well-worded definition of outrage porn.
Be careful where you're going.
No,
on the internet here.
I think my safe search is on. I'm just going to go to Wikipedia.
Good, as it should be.
Okay, outrage porn is like when news tries to, when now it's in news and it's even on mainstream news, they try to rile people up. Basically, like the guy, what's his name? This guy who was talking about how pollution is making toads gay.
Ah, yes, Alex Jones.
Alex Jones, exactly. Yeah. So he gets into character and gets really riled up. For some reason, there's something in humans that makes some people want to continue watching. It's an unpleasant feeling, or watching someone who is outraged is unpleasant, but it's also so much of a spectacle that it keeps people engaged. And I think that's what happened with CNN as well. Because I used to watch it from time to time, and they were quite level-headed until they got this executive who came. I think he came from Hollywood, and he wanted to boost the ratings, basically. And a lot of the panel discussions they have, I don't think it's by accident that they always get out of they tend to get out of control.
Yeah.
Or sometimes when they bring questionable individuals on TV and put them on the payroll.
I mean, you should, if you ever get the chance to watch an Indian talk show, and you'll understand what it means to it's like what you're describing for CNN, but multiplied by a few times.
Jerry Springer.
I mean, somebody just when I saw I was watching maybe 5 or 10 minutes of the show there.
Yeah.
And one of the guys who I was with, I was hosted by family at the time, and one of the guys of the family, I asked him, which show is this? He's like, no, they're all spectacles. They're all putting on just a show. It's not news. And I was like, oh, okay, I see. Because I just thought it was fascinating. I thought it was interesting, but they're like, no. And they're just speaking for the sake of speaking here, nothing else.
Okay, I'm gonna go with Wikipedia's definition of outrage porn.
Okay.
Not to be confused with outrage porn.
Of course, yeah.
I don't know if that exists. Okay, outrage porn, also called outrage media or outrage journalism, is a type of media that's designed to evoke outrage for the purpose of generating increased web traffic or online attention. The term outrage porn was coined in 2009 by political cartoonist and essayist Tom Crider of the New York Times.
Of course.
Yeah. So, I think at some point it made it's one of the reasons the time when I dropped off from social media, mostly Facebook, okay. I felt like there's so many stories, so many different people trying to tell me you should get angry because of this. You should get angry because of that. Some of them are real issues. But if you're bombarded with them, I don't think it's good for someone's mental health if you're constantly bombarded with such stories.
No, it's true.
Or how some people have questioned the way the media. Okay, the police force in the US, or the police service in the US, has a complicated relationship with people of color, mostly black men.
Yeah.
And the likelihood of what's the word? I don't want to say being shot.
No, but the likelihood of having more trouble than
excessive force, or just having more trouble is it's much higher for them. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, and ever since people started recording the incidents, it highlights the issue. But sometimes I feel like the media might do this not necessarily to highlight the issue, but to keep people glued to their content.
I think there's definitely a certain degree of that, right?
Sometimes where people are exploiting this.
Think about it like this, right? Yeah. I'm a supervisor for a news media outlet, and there was a report on unnecessary assault or unnecessary stop, like a road stop, right? If I'm the editor, I'm going to tell my people, because this is how you get paid by clicks and subscriptions.
Exactly.
I unfortunately in that role, you know that if you have those videos,
Yeah.
you will get more. You will get more people watching it because people will take that and say, "Oh my goodness, that's awful," but will continue to watch it.
Yeah.
No, I as you do, I don't really. I tend not to look at any of that stuff because, as you said, it's too much at once, and I do care about many things. But if I care about so many things that I forget to take care of myself, I can't help anyone.
True.
You know,
Because now we're going on another tangent.
it's okay. We're getting back into the swing of things, so I'm not. I'm not very partial to the tangents are fine. Yeah.
I think because of popular media, I'm a bit partial to the history of the US. And speaking on these videos being uploaded, there was a famous 1992 one that started the LA riots. Someone King.
Okay.
Rodney King, I think.
Okay.
Someone recorded him with his not VCR. with his camcorder, recorded cops beating him up, several cops beating him up in an unjustified manner, and that started the LA riots, and people destroyed property and lots of stuff. But that was then. It was much harder to share such news.
Yeah,
police brutality is bad and it needs to be exposed. Yeah, but it was much harder to share such news. But today with phones, with everybody having a camcorder in their pocket and the ability to essentially broadcast it in a few clicks is fairly easy. It's child's play right now.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, unfortunately, on one side, this stuff needs to be exposed because otherwise people will say, no, you guys are just making it up. Cops are friendly and stuff like that. Just one or two bad apples, which could be the case or is the case. But where am I going with this? Oh yeah, when it keeps being shared, especially the more violent ones, where say what's it called? A body cam recording had to be released because of a court order, or a civilian just happened to record someone. I'm gonna stick for now with people of color. Someone of color who is unarmed being shot, and it gets people riled up. Yeah.
Yeah. From all sides.
Yeah, from all sides. And sometimes I'm thinking the difference between that and the lynchings during, was it before Jim Crow?
There was lynchings before, during, and after.
Okay.
But in frequency, I don't know. I'm sure it was definitely before that there was a higher frequency.
Okay, yeah. Back then when the lynchings happened, it was a bit of a spectacle.
Oh yeah. No, apparently it was a thing that some families would bring their kids for like a picnic. It's awful, but yeah.
Yeah. And the worst part of that is the blacks who are also part of the community also had to witness it, whether they wanted or not.
Yeah.
Like they could look away, but it's gonna be advertised in the paper. People are gonna talk about it.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking the psychological effect that had on them is not that different from what such videos today have on mostly people of color, on everyone, but mostly people who look like the people being killed or almost killed.
Yeah, the victims of the perpetration, right?
Yeah.
Because it's tough because the US has always had a tricky relationship with media, in the sense that media is supposed to be the fourth branch of the government is all the quote that everybody uses.
The fourth estate.
But now that everybody fourth. But now, as you said, now that everybody has the access to the technology, which was essentially only for a select few.
Yeah.
It's easier to post and to put up kind of whatever, and we're essentially being flooded with so much information that if you get caught up in certain amounts of information, it's possible that you just might not understand anything else just because the viewpoint that you're given is just is completely warped or it's not, and you just can't see the viewpoints of the others.
Yeah, because I was thinking while most people are going to share the videos are going to be outraged, there's many more who are likely eating popcorn to their stuff. Like,
yeah,
unfortunately.
Oh, it's true.
because it reached a point I had to unfollow some, mostly on Twitter, some activists who constantly share such material.
Yeah.
Like I was thinking, on one hand, I was questioning my actions. Like, does unfollowing them mean that I'm burying my head in the sand, or
Yeah.
am I trying to protect my own mental health? As much as I'm viewing this from a distance,
Yeah.
yeah, it's and
No.
I wonder, like, for the people who actually get this material, do they end up suffering on their own the same way counselors, especially
Mhm.
counselors who handle probably traumatized? Sometimes I hear that they end up carrying they end up suffering on their own because you're helping people with their burdens, and at some point it's gonna affect you as well.
Yeah. No.
You're about to say something.
I was going to go with your point about if I can remember what it was. Oh goodness, it had to do with.
I moved from the lynching activism on social media.
Yeah. So activism in the sense that there are. Oh goodness, what was right after activism? No, I was going to talk about Martin Luther King.
Yeah.
Because one of the things. So you've read. Have you read? I would hope you've read, if you've been interested in U.S. history, his letter from Birmingham jail.
I'm not certain I've read it, but
okay.
Was it to his wife or to the members of the who are resisting the?
So this was a letter.
Strikes. Yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry, I didn't hear you.
Was it during the time when they went on strike and stopped the bus boycotts, I believe.
All right. So the bus boycotts, I believe that was a different matter because that was Rosa Parks.
Yeah. There was the bus boycotts, and after that, by the time he was being killed, he was protesting other stuff. He was not just civil rights, but labor rights and the Vietnam War.
Yeah. Okay. So here I too have pulled up the Wikipedia page, even though as an academic we're not supposed to do this. It's okay for now.
I'm partial to that.
So the Birmingham campaign began in August 3rd, 1963. Coordinated marches and sit-ins against racism and racial segregation in Birmingham, Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there was a lot of difficulties that were happening in Birmingham, Alabama, and they essentially united. It was nonviolent campaign coordinated by Alabama Christian Movement for Human Rights and King's Southern Christian Leadership Conference. And basically, they were. They nonviolently protested, but of course the local authorities were saying that they couldn't, like against parading, demonstrating, boycotting, marching, whatever. When they of course refused because they were going to protest, he was thrown into the jail, and he was sent a lot of letters by all sorts of different clergymen throughout the country, and basically telling him giving him many suggestions. And so he wrote a letter, which was it's the longest letter I've ever had the pleasure of reading, but it's really well thought out, and it describes, at least at the time, how when you want to be to push forward a movement. If this is my very brief summary from years of reading this, years ago reading this. If you're going to push forward a movement, you can't be stopped by the rules that are currently set in place, but you can do so in a way which is nonviolent, right?
Yeah.
And so one of the quotes that you have in this letter, which I've heard often enough, is something about the white moderate. Yeah. So this sentence I find it's great, or this section now. I must make two honest confessions with you, my Christian and Jewish brothers. First, I must confess that over the past few years, I've been greatly disappointed with the white moderate. I've almost reached the regrettable conclusion that I'm not going to say that word. The N word. So NEGRO. Yeah. The greatest stumbling block on a stride towards freedom, the is not the white citizens counselor or the Ku Klux Klaner, but the white moderate, who is more devoted to order than to justice, who prefers a negative peace, which is the absence of tension, to a positive peace, which is the presence of justice, who constantly say, I agree with the goals you seek, but I cannot agree with your methods or direct action.
Uh-huh.
Paternalistically believes that he can set the timetable for another man's freedom, who lives by a mythical conception of time, and who constantly advises essentially the Black community to wait for a more convenient season. Shallow understanding from a people of goodwill is more frustrating than absolute misunderstanding for people of ill will. Lukewarm acceptance is much more bewildering than outright rejection.
Yeah.
And so the reason why I want to read that is because I feel like in this current modern day and age, this still does apply in many senses, but I feel like outrage media also encourages people who are not affected by that outrage to exactly that, to be a moderate who says, this is too much for me, I can't watch it. And so they don't engage in anything regarding to justice. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'm getting you.
So I think this outrage media causes two problems. It's the active encouragement of people who are very, I would say, almost radical on both sides to act impatiently and with an absolute fury. But it also encourages the people who like to be moderate or some people who are on the fence to become moderate and not engage with any of them.
So it basically polarizes them. It polarizes and drives the wedge even deeper.
Right, because the people who are casual about it or have no interest in it at all, and then they see this on the media and they say, I don't want this to be part of my life. I'm just going to switch off the TV.
I have an how do I put this? Kenyan politics, or the discussion of Kenyan politics on mostly Kenyan social media. In the discussion of our politics, especially when we are moving closer to an election, there's usually two schools of thought about how to discuss it and how to deal with the past injustices that the government of the day back in the day never dealt with, whose problems continue to affect people today. Are we on the same page up to there?
To a certain degree. I'll stop you if I get more.
Okay, so some of the injustices that have happened in.
So let me try to rephrase.
Yeah.
And then you can tell me yes or no. So there was a previous government. They did some injustices, but they didn't essentially pay for those injustices. And so there's a decision after they have vacated power, who's going to pay for those injustices.
Exactly.
Okay.
And the beneficiaries of those injustices tend to remain in the political system. Sometimes their children or their children's children or their cronies.
Right.
And some of these injustices include post-election violence.
Okay.
And in some cases, use of excessive force by the police and such like things. And whenever elections are about to come up, there's one group, usually people on the side of the opposition, who say, we're moving to the election. Before we vote, we need to bring the leadership to account about things that have happened. We're not going to let them walk scot-free. They need to answer to the accusations, basically.
Yeah.
And that's, for some people, that's a very touchy topic. And some people start preemptively preaching peace, saying, guys, let's have a peaceful election. And they start preaching peace so much that it almost dilutes the message of the other people who are clamoring for justices to be rectified, or at least in some way or form mitigated.
Yeah.
And I think it's similar to the King's example of the white moderate, where some people prefer to maintain the status quo, which is more comfortable because they are not currently affected, and they feel like these are the people who are fighting against this and against said injustices. They're just going to start the hornet's nest and mess it up for everybody.
Right.
So
no, it's. I mean, I would say I was glad that it's not only the U.S., but I'm not glad because it's not a good thing. Yeah. No. All right. So I get an idea.
Yeah.
Let's switch topics.
Good.
I want to talk about national holidays. Do you know why?
Why?
Today is Bastille Day.
Bastille Day. Oh, I heard about it a bit on the radio, and how
Yes.
the Yellow Vests faced off with the how do you call your soldiers? Your army?
It's not the gendarmerie, is it?
Something of the sort. That sounds epic. I wanted to say the Yellow Vests faced off with the John Law. Oh, I can't say it.
It's okay. I'm curious though. I hadn't heard that they had faced off with the army.
They are marching towards a monument, not the tower, but the other monument, a famous French
L'Arc de Triomphe.
L'Arc de Triomphe, I believe. Yeah, and the Yellow
Either they were
Vests.
walking towards it or away from it. I don't know which.
I think they were marching towards it, and the Yellow Vests intercepted them. I just heard it briefly on German radio.
Okay.
Okay, continue.
Anyway,
Yeah.
no. I wanted to talk about national
Bastille Day.
Bastille Day as the specific. It's on the occasion of Bastille that I want to talk about national holidays. Because you know what Bastille Day is all about, right? Roughly.
In my immediate memory, Bastille. There was a movie by Idris Elba about Bastille last year, part one. I think last year, but he couldn't release it because the subject was very similar to what happened in Nice.
Mm-hmm.
How do you call that city?
Nice.
Nice, yeah.
So then I will briefly explain.
Brief me, because Hollywood is hardly a good source of history.
So there was a medieval armory, fortress, and political prison that was used by the royalty and higher ups of France during the time of the kings, known as Bastille. And it was one of the many places during the French Revolution that was stormed. And essentially, the storming of the Bastille was, I mean, surprise, surprise, done on July the 14th. And that is essentially our national holiday of independence in that sense, and independence from the monarchy. And it also, there wasn't that many prisons in there at the time, but it was the flashpoint for the revolution itself. What I find interesting is that I'm not sure if the national holidays that declare independence from whatever superior you had before is a common occurrence in pretty much any country that I know of.
Yeah. Wait, Britain.
What about you? Say that very suspiciously.
I'm trying to think. It's very awkward for them when everybody's celebrating these holidays.
Yeah, because actually that's a good point, because they didn't throw away their kings or queens like France. They didn't have a complete restructuring like Persia and Germany and the rest of Europe. So what did they? I mean, that's a good question.
That's why I said it.
Hold on. We're looking this up. Britain national holidays. Okay. What about Boxing Day? No, that's not it. Armed Forces Day, Christmas Sun. No, it's all just Christian holidays. All right. Public holidays in the UK. New Year's Day, St. Patrick's Day, Good Friday, Easter Monday, May Day bank holiday. What?
Maybe they celebrate Brexit Day. That's the closest they come to.
Oh my God! You're right!
That's the closest they come to breaking away from somebody who had power over them.
No, you don't understand. This is their National Independence Day. This is brilliant. Brexit is the equivalent. I'm tweeting this.
Yeah.
The length of every other Independence Day globally, because what did the UK have? What did the UK? What did the UK revolt about before?
They were the big boogeyman that everybody revolted against. Rather, most people where the sun never set.
The first time Okay, so Brexit is the equivalent of every other Independence Day, every other national Independence Day, Independence Day globally, because it's the first time they are the ones rejecting another power, I guess.
I think
That's
Japan. Yeah, I think Japan as well, and Japan doesn't even have Brexit. I was just thinking, any other country who refer to themselves as imperial, and they still have their monarchy. The king recently abdicated, and his son took over.
Yeah, no, I remember that. But I was talking with a Japanese, and they mentioned that. Excuse me, I'm gonna sneeze again.
Okay.
Oh, goodness. They mentioned that unlike Britain, the Japanese monarchy really doesn't have anything except for lots of money, no Japanese passport, oddly enough.
Same as the Queen, she doesn't have a passport.
What? I didn't know that.
There was a whole YouTube video about it by this guy, Simon Whistler.
Okay, please explain to me how this works, because I remember my Japanese colleague talking to me about no passports on the monarchy.
Because
in Japan.
Kenya basically mirrors the British system, and our passports are authorized by the president. And I think in the UK, it's passports and driver's licenses. They're authorized by the Queen, I think.
Okay, so she can't give herself one?
I guess that would be abuse of office.
I guess so.
I really think she doesn't have a passport. There was a whole video dedicated to it. I think I watched it once or twice.
Well, I mean, we can just both agree that monarchy is just...
Yeah. Wait, so this was the French Revolution, Bastille Day was in which year? Was about 2.5 centuries ago, 3 centuries ago?
It was after, funny enough, it was after American independence, before the 1800s, before Industrial Revolution. It was the last king of France, Louis. Oh goodness, I'm going to get whipped if I don't remember this off the top of my head. My gut tells me 17. Now I'll actually look. 17 or 27. There's a 7 in there somewhere. So, Sean. So first of all, the date that's given is 1789. So I was right on the money before the 1800s, Industrial Revolution time. Now, who a king causes? Yeah, ancient regime. Wait, XVI is 16. He ascended the throne then.
Why don't people just write those numbers normally? I hate it when I have to. When I'm reading history, then something in Roman numbers, like, it wouldn't have to just write it in conventional...
All right. Look, Roman numbers, think about it.
Yeah.
It's actually, in terms of the amount of characters you have to remember, it's very little. But, yeah, no, sometimes it's a pain.
I'll tell you what I'm laughing about.
Yeah, tell me.
The French Revolution was when the common man rebelled against the monarchy, yeah? And people took power to themselves. So in Haiti, the Haitian Revolution was directly influenced by the French Revolution, and they were the first country to gain independence from colonialists, quote unquote colonialists. But when the French Revolution took place, there was changes in laws, and there was something about human rights, declaring all men free and equal. We should shout out Wikipedia for this podcast. When that happened, the rich white people who are known as the Grand Blancs.
Excuse me?
The Grand Blancs.
Les Grands Blancs.
Yeah, I'm reading it in English, but I'm guessing it's from French. So the Grands Blancs, something like that.
Yeah, it's literally the Great Whites.
The Great Whites thought that, wow, this is nice. This means we're going to get independence from the wealthy white people who are on the islands in Haiti. Thought, wow, we're finally going to be free from France's rule. We don't have to pay homage to them because we are also equal. But there was also black people on the island, and they're like, wow, this is cool. That means we are also equal, and these white people are not going to rule over us.
That's pretty great.
So it was like revolution inception of some sort. A revolution
in
within a revolution within a revolution.
I don't care what anybody says. That's the title of this episode.
Yeah.
Revolution Inception. Yep, that's the episode title.
So I just think it's amazing.
Amazing.
How the great whites thought these rules are going to apply to them and make them equal to the monarchy, and that means that they can also have their own. They can decide on their terms, and they can live on their own terms.
Yeah.
But the people,
when everybody else said
the people,
no.
the majority who they were ruling were like, "Wow, this is nice. These people are going to set our own terms. Not these people are not going to decide how we live our lives." And so the Haitian Revolution was born.
Yeah.
Though I'm gonna look at that again slowly to find out if that was the case and not the other way around. It's gonna be embarrassing if I find out that the French were actually influenced by the Haitians and not the other way around. French Revolution, Haitian Revolution. The Haitian Revolution was in 1791.
So that was during the time of the French Revolution.
So around the same time,
roughly.
Oh.
It was all kind of happening at the same time during a financial when everything goes badly anyway for anyone.
Yeah.
So yeah.
The slave rebellion of 1791 in Haiti.
All right. Well, I think we spent a solid hour and a half almost.
Yeah.
Hour and 15 discussing.
Yeah.
So I think for getting back into it, I think today that's good.
Yeah.
And we can maybe have an idea now that we're back in the swing of things, what we're actually going to talk about next time, like one topic, as opposed to the hodgepodge that we got today.
True.
But it was good. I really like this article you sent me about how to write about Africa.
Yeah.
I'll read it for sure.
It's really interesting. It would be a whole. I would have a lot to talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but it was great getting back to it. I really enjoyed myself as well.
Mm-hmm.
Moving through
That's
Iraq to Haiti to France to Kenya to the US,
USA, yeah.
to the internet.
It's that's the circle.
Yeah, circle of life.
Oh, well, let's talk about Lion King next time.
Yeah. Can I put something in your head before I go for a 2-minute
okay,
break?
Be careful, yeah.
The Lion King and the Black Panther, the same movie, same story.
Oh yeah, no, I want yes, no question.
In a moment,
I'll have a whole. We'll talk about it another episode, but I'm a small expert in terms of constructed storytelling. But you're absolutely right.
Talk.
I'm here.
Oh, that's how that's how people used to knock in French textbooks when I was in primary school. Instead of knock, it was talk in the captions.
Actually, that's the same in French.
Talk.
Yes, talk. Yeah.
What are your doors made of?
Whatever you just tapped on.
Okay, French doors are made of desk material.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
In the English-speaking world, they're made of something else because it's knock. Though in Swahili, we have a word.
Yeah.
You say hodi.
Like who this?
Hodi, Hodi. Hodi. Someone comes to your door.
Yeah. I
don't know why they did that, but you say hodi, then when you're inside, you say karibu. Karibu means welcome.
Mm-hmm.
So hodi is like the only way. In as much as I know the Swahili language, the only way context in which it's used is to knock.
Okay.
Hodi, karibu.
Is it like, hey, is anybody home?
Exactly.
Okay, cool.
Is there anybody home? Can I come in?
That's. I should use that. Nobody would understand it except you.
Yeah, hodi.
Okay.
So yeah, the Lion King Wakanda thing. I was just watching the Lion King with Laura yesterday. Snippets of it.
Oh, yeah.
And
wait, the original or the one in the movie?
They're
the same.
The old one, the one that makes people cry.
Yeah, okay.
I didn't cry.
I mean, it's an excellent movie and it's well animated. So
But as a kid, I cried when I was watching a Jesus movie where they were whipping him.
I mean,
But I was confused. I was wondering why they're whipping him. Then it was sad for me because I thought they are recording it live. But I was also asking myself how they recorded it. As I was growing older, I was asking myself, how did they record this? Because the concept of people dramatizing things hadn't really sunk in. It took a while for that.
That's one type of outrage media. They did that. I think though I'm kind of crushed for today. So yeah. I think we can call it a good episode.
Yeah. So thanks a lot for turning up. I know you had an exhausting day.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah. my pleasure. I wanted to get us rolling again. So it's good. It's good.
Good. So I'm gonna end the recording right now.
Excellent.